Hello, team players. Time for another teamwork build, and this time we're going to be using a pretty popular Barbarian instinct in a way you might not expect. Let's dive in. For this build's ancestry, we're going to go with the Dwarf. And our heritage for this build is going to be the Dromaar, otherwise known as the Half-Orc. I know that this ancestry and heritage combo isn't very common in Galarian, but these two actually work extremely well together, especially for builds like this. And of course, we are building a Barbarian here, and we're going to go with the Giant Instincts. For stats, the most important is going to be Strength, most definitely. But our second most important stat is going to be Constitution. This build wants to get hit, so the more hit points we have, the better. Your third most important is going to be Charisma, as this build does want to frighten people, especially while raging. Now let's get to what you guys really care about, level 1 feats. Starting with Raging Intimidation. This allows us to intimidate foes while we're raging, and gives us 2 of the best intimidation skill feats for free as soon as we qualify for them. Frightened is one of the best conditions in the game, and this allows us to inflict it on enemies even when we're raging. Then of course for our ancestry feat, we're going Orc Ferocity, allowing us to stay up at 1 hit point when we would fall unconscious. At level 2, it's time for Shake It Off, allowing us to more easily reduce our frightened and sickened conditions, which is a big deal for this build. As I said in my last teamwork build, I'm going to be covering why I'm taking what I'm taking in the teamwork reports in these videos now. So make sure you stick around for those. For general feats at level 3, we'll be taking, of course, the standard Die Hard, Toughness, and Canny Acumen for our reflex save. We will also need Incredible Initiative and Fleet. Pretty standard for general feats. For level 4, we're going to be taking Oversized Throw, allowing us to throw nearby objects at enemies that are out of our reach. For today's first teamwork reports, let's talk about the feats we're taking and why we're taking them. First up is Raging Intimidation. I would have 100% taken Sudden Charge here, but this build wants enemies to come to us, and that will become apparent once we get to level 8. So instead, we want to be able to intimidate foes while raging, as frightening foes lower the foe's offense and defense. That lower defense is going to be important here because we want to do as much damage as we can in this build, while still helping the team, of course. As for Shake It Off, we're already going to have a lower AC because of our instincts. So the last thing we need is to get frightened or sickened. So this allows us to automatically lower our frightened condition by 1, and lower our sickened condition even on a failed check. And if we succeed or critically succeed, we're basically getting rid of the entire sickened condition. Then of course we come to Oversized Throw. First off, even with the reach that we get later on, we are still going to have trouble with flying enemies. So we need a ranged option. And there's another reason too. Since this build punishes enemies for coming within our reach, smart enemies are going to want to use ranged attacks against us. And remember, the goal of this build is to get enemies to come to us, which means it's beneficial for this build to stay in one place. So this allows us to stay in one place and still attack ranged enemies that are smart enough not to come within our reach. And why we're taking Orc Ferocity should be obvious. By the end of this build, we are going to have massive hit points. That combined with a healer will mean most of the time we're not going to go down to 0 hit points. But it may get to that point, and if it does, we need to be able to stay up so we can help our party more. For our level 5 ancestry feat, we're going to be taking Sheltering Slab. We can't be caught off guard as long as we're on the ground and adjacent to a vertical surface, such as a wall. Next, of course, is Giant Stature. Now we can become large just by raging. This is one of the most important feats in this entire build, and I'll talk about why in the second team report. Next, we're going to want to make a feat that's called Attack of Opportunity for now, but when Player Core 2 comes out, it'll be called Reactive Strike more than likely. This will allow us to hit enemies that move into our reach. For our level 9 ancestry feat, we're going to be taking Mountain Stoutness. This is essentially a second toughness feat, which of course means more hit points. And the final feat for this video is going to be Knockback, allowing us to push enemies back when we hit them. For Teamwork Report number 2, let's talk about why this build wants to stay in one place and get enemies to come to them instead of the other way around. This build is designed to protect ranged attackers. And the best way to do that is to have them in our space. And we can do that by making our ranged allies tiny, with things like the Shrink spell or Shrinking Potion. And if we move, well, then our allies have to move with us. Remember that if allies are in our space, then enemies won't be able to attack them from certain directions if they don't have reach. But even if they do have reach, they can use us as cover, which makes being large size at level 6 very important. But I'm getting ahead of myself. First, let's talk about Sheltering Slab. It is highly beneficial for this build to be next to walls, as if we are next to a wall, that means enemies won't be able to attack us or our allies from that direction. This works especially well if we're in a corner of a room. But being next to a wall also makes it easier for enemies to flank us, making us off guard. And remember, our AC is already going to be low because of our instincts. So this will make us effectively not able to be flanked if we're near a stone wall, which happens more often than you might think. I already talked about why we need giant stature. We need to be large, so it's harder for enemies to attack ranged allies that are in our space. Why we're taking Attack of Opportunity should be obvious, but just in case it's not, again, we want to punish enemies for coming within our reach. And this will let us attack them if they come into our reach or try to leave it. Without stepping, of course. Mountain Stoutness is just way more extra hit points, which for this build is a big deal. And of course, Knockback is so we can push enemies back, either into hazards in the environment, or force them to take our reactive strike if they want to attack us or our allies. Okay, if you've got free Archetype, then there are a number of Archetypes you could take that will help this build. We do want to use a two-handed weapon with this build, so the Mauler Archetype is an excellent choice here, as is the Champion and the Fighter. If you go with Champion or Fighter, there's a very important feat that you'll need to take if you can get far enough to take it, and that is Impassable Wall Stance, allowing us to disrupt move actions if we quickly hit with our reactive strike. But if you're looking to shrink down allies yourself, then any spellcaster with the Shrink spell will help a lot. If you want to go that route, Witch is probably the best choice. However, this does mean that you will have to up your intelligence rather than your charisma. It also means that you're going to need to take Moment of Clarity so that you can actually cast spell. But if you're not worried about that, you can take the Cauldron feat from the Witch and focus on Shrinking Potion. This would also allow you to make other potions such as Healing Potion. Unfortunately, Alchemist will not work for this build because there's no alchemical item that allows you to shrink down allies, as of yet. And you won't be able to take Improbable Elixirs because that is level 18 feat. But if you guys enjoyed this build, go ahead and leave a like. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more Pathfinder and Starfinder 2e teamwork content. If you're interested in getting my videos early, you can become a member of this channel, or you can join on the Patreon page, just like these people here. Link is in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching, and remember, teamwork is vital. It helps us solve problems.